Good morning, students. My name is CHSV Prasad Rao, Senior Lecturer in Electrical Department at Government Polytechnic, Yadgirigutta. Today we will handle this subject AC motors. In this AC motor, we are continuing with the chapter 4, that is characteristics of three-phase induction motor. So in the last class, we covered working principle and power stages in three-phase induction motor and torque equation. So briefly, I will cover the previous class. So three-phase induction motor. So what is three-phase induction motor? So where it is used? What is the properties? We covered all the things in the last class. So what it contains? What is the construction? So it contains two parts, stator and rotor. The stationary part is called stator and the rotating part is called rotor. So the stator is an outer stationary hollow cylinder and it contains laminations on the inner periphery. So in that slots, we will provide the insulating conductors are placed in the stator slots and are suitably connected to a three-phase star or delta connected circuit, and the six terminals are brought out and they are connected to a terminal box. So where we give the connection to this one, and the number of, when we give the three-phase supply through a three-phase stator winding, then what happened? A rotating magnetic field of constant magnitude is produced. We have derived this one also earlier, that is the resultant flux pi r is equal to 1.5 times the maximum flux. So at any instant, it is the same thing. So this rotating flux, that depends on the current carrying capacity and how much voltage you have designed. So like that, according to that one, the it produces the magnetic flux, and according to that, it starts producing the magnetic field. So depending on the current. So this magnetic flux passes through the air gap and cuts the stationary rotor conductors. So this will comes in the working principle. So this is the stator. It contains the outer frame. It inner side. It contains the inner periphery. It has the slots. On these slots, we will keep the stator winding. That is for a three phase. Either they are connected in star or delta, and the three terminals are brought out, and they are connected. Bring to the terminal box is there, outermost part. There it is. There they are connected. There we will give the three-phase supply to the stator winding and the number of poles. So which the stator are designed, that depends on the speed to for which speed the motor is designed. So likewise we have to design the stator and its winding and number of poles. So if you come to the rotor, so what is rotor? A rotating part is called rotor, and it has two types of rotors. One is squirrel cage rotor and another one is phase wound rotor. So if you use so the induction motor is the name the induction motor depends on the application which motor we have to use. Either we have to use squirrel cage rotor or phase wound rotor. If you use the squirrel cage rotor, then it is called three phase squirrel cage induction motor. And if you use phase wound rotor, then it is called three phase squirrel cage rotor. So likewise we will divide. So if you see the squirrel cage rotor, in this case squirrel cage rotor, it maximum 90% of the induction motors are using this squirrel cage rotor. So what it contains, it is a laminated steel cylinder having a slots on the outer periphery, and on these slots copper bars are placed in these slots, and these copper bars are short circuited at both sides in squirrel cage rotor. So at both ends the rotor bars are short circuited. So the rotor slots are not made parallel to the rotor axis. The rotor slots are not made parallel to the shaft axis. They are skewed at a certain angle. Sometimes he will ask for a short question, 1 mark or 2 mark. So why the rotor slots are skewed at a certain angle? So it is to reduce the magnetic noise during working, to produce a more uniform torque, and to prevent possible magnetic locking, also called cogging of the rotor. So, uh, so he will ask sometimes for 1 mark or 2 marks. What he will ask? He will ask why the rotor slots are not made parallel to the shaft axis, why they are skewed at a certain angle. So why? Because the rotor slots are not made parallel, they are skewed at a certain angle. Why? Because to reduce magnetic noise during working, to produce more uniform torque, and to prevent possible magnetic locking, also called cogging of the rotor. So this is why the rotor slots are not made parallel to the shaft. So what is magnetic locking? We have explained in synchronous motor. Magnetic locking is the magnetic locking between occurs between stator rotor slots and stator magnetic field. So when magnetic locking occurs, the rotor starts rotating at a synchronous speed. When it is If it runs starts rotating at synchronous speed, then what happens? The slip is zero. The relative speed is zero. When relative speed is zero, induced EMF is zero. When induced EMF is zero, current is zero. When current is zero, torque is zero. When torque is zero, speed is zero. That means induction motor stops. So that's why the synchronous motor never runs at synchronous speed. Always it runs at a speed less than its rated speed. That is synchronous speed. Okay, that is the construction of a squirrel cage rotor. So in squirrel cage rotor, it contains the rotor bars where on both sides it is short circuited. So and if you come to the Next, second rotor, phase wound rotor. In phase wound rotor, the rotor winding, three-phase winding. So they are connected in star, and the three terminals are the rotor in a phase bound rotor. It contains a three-phase distributed winding, and it is placed in the rotor slots, and the number of poles must be equal to the stator poles, and it is always connected for a three-phase supply, and these winding three terminals are brought out, and they are connected to the slip rings which are placed on the shaft of the motor. So here what they are doing on the rotor, on the it has the shaft. On this shaft it contains three slip rings. For these slip rings, one side they are connect this rotor winding. On the other side of the slip ring, one side is connected the rotor winding. On the other side, they kept the brushes on that one. Through brushes, they are connect some external resistance. Some external resistance they will connect. Some external resistance. So in a star connection. So why they are connected external resistance means to one thing, one purpose is to limit the starting current. Another purpose is to increase the starting torque. So in two conditions it is used. And if you compare the phase bound and the squirrel cage rotor, in squirrel cage rotor it's not possible to add external resistance. In phase bound rotor it is possible to add some external resistance in series with the rotor circuit. So when the motor reaches to 80 to 90% of the speed, the external resistance is gradually removed, reduced, and bring to zero. Then these slip rings are short circuited and the brushes are lifted. Then the rotor works as normal rotor only without adding external resistance. This external resistance will be there only at the time of starting. So this is the difference between squirrel cage rotor and phase bound rotor. So that is the construction. If you see the working principle, so when we give the three-phase supply to the stator winding, then it produces a rotating magnetic field which passes through the air gap and cuts the rotating and cuts the sorry, and this when we give the three-phase supply to the stator winding, then it produces a rotating magnetic field whose magnitude is equal to 1.5 times the maximum flux. So that is always its resultant flux is constant. So pi r is equal to 1.5 times the pi m. Pi r is the resultant flux and pi m is the maximum flux. So its magnitude always constant, but it rotates at a synchronous speed. So this flux passes through the air gap and cuts the stationary rotor conductors. So when this flux cuts the rotor conductors, then an EMF is induced in the rotor stationary rotor conductors according to Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. What is Faraday's law says? It says when a conductor cuts the magnetic field or magnetic field cuts the conductor, then an EMF is induced in the conductor. So, an EMF is induced in the rotor conductors as the rotor conductors are in the form of a closed circuit. Current flows through the ar- through these armature conductors. So when the current is flowing through these conductors, then it produces a rotor flux around the rotor conductors. It is so anti-clockwise direction that can be determined. The rotor flux direction can be determined by Lenz's law. So if you see the if you keep if you, the stator flux is coming from north pole to south pole, that is top to bottom, and the rotor also has the rotor flux which is rotating in anti-clockwise direction. So because of that, what happened? The flux on the right hand side of the conductor are in opposite direction. Then the resultant flux is weakened. And if you see the left hand side, both rotor flux and the stator flux are in the same direction, and the resultant flux is strengthened, and it will pushes the conductor, that is it produces a force on the rotor conductor and starts rotates. Likewise, all conductor produces a small force on the rotor conductor and it pushes the rotor conductor. When the rotor conductor is trying to rotate, then automatically the rotor also rotates and starts rotating. When the rotor is rotating, it cuts the magnetic field and it produces more EMF, then more current, then more torque, more speed. So likewise, it increases, speed increases and reaches to maximum speed. But that must be less than synchronous speed. So that's why the induction motor is a self-starting motor. So what are the power we are giving to the input? We are giving input is electrical energy. What the motor will do? The motor converts electrical energy into mechanical energy. So here, what is the input energy we are giving? That is the three phase input, that is root 3 VLIL cos pi. That is the input energy we are giving to the motor. Motor means where we are giving to the motor means what? Stator or rotor? Where we are giving? Just now I told it has the supply is given to the stator terminals. So the power input is given to the stator winding. Then what happened? The stator input or motor input both are same. From this stator input, some of the power is supplied for stator iron and copper losses. The remaining power is supplied to the rotor. That is called rotor input. That goes to the rotor. From supply input, if you remove stator iron and copper losses, the remaining power reaches to the rotor. That is called rotor input. So for this, from this rotor input, if you remove rotor copper losses, then power the power produced is called mechanical power developed or gross rotor output. So from this, if you remove if you remove friction and windage losses, that is constant losses, then we can get motor output or rotor output. I hope this is clear for everyone. Power stages, once again I am repeat. The stator input or motor input. From this, if you remove stator iron and copper losses, then we can get rotor input. From this rotor input, if you remove rotor copper losses, then we can get mechanical power developed or gross rotor output. From this gross rotor output, if you friction and windage losses, then we can get rotor output or motor output. This we covered. This also we covered in the last class power stages, and we derived the torque equations also. So that is gross torque Tg. So gross torque Tg is equal to rotor gross output by 2 pi Nr. What is Nr? Nr is the rotor speed in RPS, not in RPM. It is in RPS. So that is the gross torque formula. Gross torque is equal to gross rotor output by 2 pi Nr. So Nr is the rotor speed in RPS. Or we have another formula also. That is rotor input. Gross torque is equal to rotor input by 2 pi ns. 2 pi ns. Where ns is equal to synchronous speed. Ns is equal to synchronous speed. So So this have we have derived, and we derived the different relations between powers, copper losses, gross rotor output, and rotor input with respect to slip. And what we derived? We derived rotor copper losses is equal to S into rotor input, and we derived rotor gross output is equal to 1 minus S into rotor input, and rotor efficiency is equal to Nr by Ns. Nr by Ns. So today we will derive the expression for rotor current and EMF under running condition and maximum torque equation. So let E2 is equal to rotor standstill, rotor induced EMF. Always we have to remember here we have two induced EMFs, E2 and ER. That is standstill rotor induced EMF per phase, and next I2 rotor standstill current per phase, and next x2 is equal to standstill rotor reactance per phase, and f2 is equal to rotor frequency at standstill. So when rotor is stationary, s is equal to 1. That means slip is 1. The frequency of rotor EMF is same as that of stator supply frequency. The value of EMF induced in the rotor at standstill is maximum because the relative speed between the rotor and the revolving stator flux is maximum. Okay. What is the meaning of the value induced EMF at standstill is maximum when the relative speed between the rotor and the stator flux is maximum. What is relative speed? This one also we covered in the last class. That is ns minus nr. So the motor is equivalent to a three-phase transformer with a short-circuited rotating secondary. When rotor starts running, the relative speed between it and the rotor flux is decreases. That is ns minus nr. Why? That means it increases, NR increases. So automatically when NR increases, the relative speed between two is decreasing. The rotor EMF, the rotor induced EMF, which is directly proportional to this relative speed, is also decreased. That is, may disappeared altogether if rotor speed were to be equal to the speed of the stator flux. That means when the rotor speed is equal to synchronous speed. So it never happened. Always the induction motor runs at a speed lesser than synchronous speed. So that means the induction motor never runs at a synchronous speed. Why? Because this reason only. Hence the slip, yes, the rotor induced EMF will be S times the induced EMF at a standstill. So induced EMF under running condition. So at the time of standstill mean S is equal to 1. So at the time of standstill, ER rotor induced EMF is equal to E2. So that means at the time of starting, the induced EMF is equal to EMF at a standstill condition. So actually normal running condition induced EMF ER is equal to S into E2. At standstill S is equal to 1. So ER is equal to E2 in standstill condition. So similarly, the frequency of the induced EMF is FR is equal to S into F2. This is also same thing. In standstill, S is equal to 1. So FR is equal to F2. Both are equal. FR is equal to F2 at standstill. At standstill, ER is equal to E2. Why? Because S is 1 under standstill condition. So due to decrease in frequency of the rotor EMF, the rotor reactance also decreases. That is ER is equal. This is all running condition. Running condition rotor induced EMF, running condition rotor frequency, running condition rotor reactance, where ER, XR are the rotor EMF and reactance under running condition. So torque under running condition T is proportional to ER into IR into pi 2 cos pi 2. So ER is equal to rotor EMF per phase under running condition. IR is equal to rotor current per phase under running condition. So ER is equal to S into E2. So IR is equal to ER by ZR, that is equal to SC2 by square root of R2 square plus SX2 whole square. Note down these formulas IR, ER, FR, these are important. Definitely you will get one problem on this. Note down. These are here in induction motor always we have to check the condition. When we given the problem, you read carefully and note down which condition is given. Either he given for standstill or running condition. If we given the running condition, we have to use ER is equal to SE2, IR is equal to ER by ZR. So that is SE2 by square root of R2 square plus SX2 square. We have to substitute ER value, IR value in this torque equation. So to draw the phasor diagram, R2 is on the x-axis, that is AB. SX2 is the reactance under running condition, and AC is the impedance, that is ZR under running condition. Here R2 is same, either it is a uh, starting condition or running condition. Why? Because it is not depend on the frequency, where reactance changes. Why? Because it depends on the frequency. So SX2 is the running condition reactance, ZR is the running condition impedance. So ZR is equal to square root of R2 square plus SX2 whole square, and this is the phase angle pi. So what is pi 2? Pi 2 is equal to R2 by ZR. R2 by ZR. So that is equal to R2 by ZR is square root of pi 2 square R2 square plus X2 whole square. So from this vector diagram we can say cos pi is equal to adjacent side by hypotenuse, that is R2 by ZR. So that is R2 by square root of R2 square plus SX2 whole square. So T is proportional to, we have substituted all values. This is ER value, this is ZR value, and this is cos pi value. Then S is proportional, T is proportional to, torque is proportional, yes, E2 R2 by square root of, here square root 2 times it will come. Why? Because here current IR current is E2 by square root of R2 square plus SX2. Similarly, in cos P2, cos pi 2 also we get the same thing. R2 by square root of R2 square plus X2. These two multiply, so then it becomes whole square. That root will be removed. So we will get SE2 R2 by R2 square plus SX2 whole square. So K is the proportionality constant, that is equal to K into pi into S into E2 R2 by R2 square plus SX2 whole square, where K is the proportionality constant. So K S E2 R2 by R2 square plus SX2 whole square, where I2 E2 is proportional to flux, where K is constant. Its value can be proved to be equal to 3.2 pi ns. Hence, in this case, expression will become like this. We substitute the K value here. So S E2 R2 square by, what is this, R2 square plus X2 whole square, that is Z2 square. So at standstill, what happened? S is 1. S is 1. Then the torque equation is called K into E2 square R2 by R2 square plus X2 square. So here the same K value substitute 3 by 2 pi ns. So so condition for maximum torque. So this is the torque equation. What we have to do to get the man? We have to differentiate the torque T with respect to variable. In this case, what is the variable? S is the variable. Why? Because S changes, slip changes with speed. So we have to differentiate the dt by with respect to S. So this is the equation 1. The condition maximum torque may be obtained by differentiating the above equation with respect to slip and equal to 0. Equal to 0. So let us see. So this is what is saying, put y is equal to 1 by t. Y is equal to 1. Then differentiate it. So y so it is reversed and he is doing the differentiation. So this is the differentiation with respect to s. This is u by v rule. U by v rule. That is differentiation of u, u by v is equal to u dv plus dvu by u square. So dy by ds is equal to minus r2 by this k pi s e2 plus x2 by k pi e2 r2 is equal to 0. Equate this one. Here k get cancel, e2 get cancel, and pi get cancel. Then r2 square is equal to s square into x square. So r2 is equal to sx2. What is sx2? Reactance. That is torque is maximum when the rotor resistance is equal to rotor reactance under running condition. Hence, torque under running condition is maximum at that value of slip S, which makes rotor reactance per phase equal to rotor resistance per phase. This slip is sometimes written as SB and the maximum torque is TB. So slip corresponding to maximum torque S is equal to R2 by X2. So in running condition, put in this torque equation you substitute R2 is equal to Sx2. Then the max you can get the maximum torque. If you substitute this value, we will get the maximum torque is equal to k pi SE2 by 2x2. This is the maximum torque value. Substitute the value of S R2 is equal to x2 in the above equation. Then you can get this is under standstill condition, where starting condition. So where S is equal to 1. So T max is equal to K into E2 square by 2x2. You have to derive, then you can understand the values. Where k constant value is same 3 by 2 pi ns. From so it is found the Mason torque is independent of resistance. That means the maximum torque value is not depend on rotor resistance. The speed and slip at which maximum torque occurs is determined by rotor resistance. So from this, we can say the torque becomes maximum when rotor reactance is equal to its resistance, that is R2 is equal to S X2. Hence, by varying the rotor distance, maximum torque can be made to occur at any desired slip. So next point is maximum torque varies inversely as standstill reactance. Hence, it should be kept as small as possible. Maximum torque varies directly as the square of the applied voltage. For obtaining maximum torque at starting, that is S is equal to 1, rotor resistance must be equal to rotor reactance, that is R2 is equal to S X2. Rotor torque at any slip can be expressed in terms of maximum torque by the equation where SB is the slip speed, where TB is the maximum torque. Note down the expression where SB is the breakdown or slip at maximum torque, TB is the maximum torque value. That is also called breakdown torque or maximum torque or pull out torque, or both all are same. Maximum torque, breakdown torque or pull out torque. So this is called slip at maximum torque, and TB is the maximum torque, and SP is the slip at maximum torque. Maximum torque we can call, breakdown we can torque, all pull out torque also we can call. So next, to find the relations between starting torque, maximum torque and full load torque. So T by T max is equal to 2S R2X2 by R2 square plus SX2 whole square. Now divide numerator and denominator by x2 square. Then it becomes like this. X2 get cancelled. Then 2s R2 by x2. What is R2 by x2? That is the slip at maximum torque, that is A. So 2as by a square plus s square. That is the relation between T by T max. T full load torque by T max is equal to 2as by a square plus s square. Note down this. This is important relation. He will give for problems. Next, the relation between starting torque and maximum torque. That is 2r2x2 by r2 square plus x2 square. Divide numerator and denominator by x2 square. Then 2s r2x2 by x2 square by x2 square. This x2 get cancelled. Then it becomes 2 r2 by x2, again r2 by x2 whole square plus 1, where r2 by x2 is equal to a. So that is 2a by 1 plus a square. This is the relation between starting torque and maximum torque. 2a by 1 plus a square. So we have derived these formulas: torque equation, constant value, maximum torque, constant value, and the relation between full load torque and maximum torque. Note down this. We have to practice this one derivations. and for maximum torque you have to do the differentiation. And what we can get the questions from this chapter, we can get derive the expression for torque under running condition for an induction motor. Torque, full torque you have to derive. This you will get for 5 marks or 10 marks. And next question is derive the condition for maximum torque in a three-phase induction motor under running condition. So what is the condition for maximum torque? That is R2 is equal to S X2. So take this assignment. This is one problem. A three-phase slip ring induction motor with star connected rotor has an induced EMF of 120 volts between slip rings at a standstill with normal voltage applied to stator. The rotor winding has a resistance per phase of 0.3 ohms and standstill reactance per phase of, this is 1 point, by mistake it's gone to hyphen, 1.5 ohms. This is resistance is 1.3 ohms, reactance is 1.5 ohms. So in this case, this is given data, what we have to calculate? Calculate rotor current per phase when running short circuited with 4% slip. Next bit is the slip and rotor current per phase when rotor is developing maximum torque. So next problem is, this is very important, so many times he given, a three-phase slip ring induction motor gives a reading of 55 volts across slip rings on open circuit when at rest with normal stator voltage applied. The rotor is star connected and has an impedance of 0.5 plus J5 ohms per phase. That means 0.7 is the resistance R2 and 5 ohms is the reactance. Find the rotor current when the machine is, first bit, at standstill with the slip rings joined to a star connected starter with a phase impedance of 4 plus J3. That means here external resistance is added at the time of starting. So B bit running normally with 3% of slip. So here when running means the external resistance is disconnected from the supply. So you have to calculate the rotor current at starting when this resistance is connected in series with the rotor, and again the rotor current when it is at running normally. That means this external resistance is removed. A bit starting be connected external resistance, B bit external resistance is removed and it has a slip of 5%. You do these problems and read this one, and if you have any doubt, ask me in the next class. Thank you.